so we're going to get started here. Going to talk about GRID. So GRID's a global real estate community investment advisors, and we're not gurus. We're just people sharing information. We have a meetup group because I was looking for deals, because I was doing, courthouse auction foreclosure stuff and all that, and doing some fix and flips and that type of thing when I first got my real estate license, and so that's how I met Rob. And it was the real deal. So I'd gone to a bunch of investor meetup groups before, and they want you to give them $10,000 and they give you their DVD collection on how to do this. And I'm like, no, I'm not looking to, give anybody 10 grand or 5 grand or whatever their fee was. And so about the fifth time, I Googled this. There was like this realtor, Rob Chavez, who was doing an investor meetup group, right? And he, so I said, well, shoot, I might as well go check that out. What can possibly go wrong there? So went to visit them. They're the real deal. It's like, we'll teach you how to do this business for free. And all we want is the connections, the networking, and we want to bring deals with do deals with one another and find deals together. So that's how this started, right? So we welcome all experience levels here, whether you're just starting, whether you have never done any real estate deals before, whether you don't have any investment properties and you're just thinking about maybe doing that. All come one, come all, right? Because it'll be interesting, because as we fill the room up over time, there's people here that have multi-million-dollar portfolios of investment properties, right? So everyone has to share. Where's GRID going? Well, we're going to eventually be in 1,000 communities, and we'll have 2,000 leaders and 10,000 financially free people, and hopefully 100,000 millionaires, right? And there may be millionaires in this room already. So, so I told you a little bit about who I am. I run the Clifton real estate team. We focus on the last small town in Fairfax County, which is Clifton, and so we do real estate in this area, and also do investments. So, Will?
Yes, sir. Will Baxter. I started my journey in real estate in 2006. I took a real estate class with and met my wife in the class. I had just gotten out of the Marine Corps and was really clueless as to what I wanted to do, but I was super passionate about real estate. Neither me or my wife got our real estate licenses, and I got into cybersecurity because I had a clearance, and did that for like 20 years. Ironically, in 2017, I was really bored with IT security, and said, I gotta get back to what I'm passionate about. And so I got reinvested in real estate. Started working on the side, working on the weekends. Went to my first cause arresting group. Met the whole team, Rob and everybody. I got licensed as an agent in 2017. Started doing meetup groups, traveling around. Joined Fortune Builders. Invested a ton of money in education programs.
So you gave me your 10 grand then?
I give way more than 10 grand.
Excellent. That was a mistake.
I've been at many universities. I'll be paying for this for a long time. But I've done a lot of those different groups. I've been a part of the good ones and the bad ones. And, we hope to be a good one, a resource for the community here. Mm-hmm. Since 2017, I've been a part of Design Pro Remodeling. My partner and I we've done over 500 renovations between client projects and our own. And that's something we're passionate about growing, and looking to really help, like Dave said, build a community of folks that can get connected, figuring out whatever you're looking to do. I know folks are growing into multifamily, growing into renovation, short, long. I just learned about midterm renovations last month from Rob. Yep. I didn't even know that was a thing. Mm-hmm. So there's so many great resources that can come here and give back, and obviously each month we're going to discuss something completely different. I'm super stoked about that. So excited to have everybody and excited to meet everyone.
Yeah, the midterm renovations are like, doctors will go on call for like 3 months at a time, and they're, they need a place to stay.
Yeah.
So that's becoming a big deal.
I love it.
Yep. And JC?
JC Novak. I work for Realty Exchange Corporation. We do 1031 exchanges. I just sort of kind of fell into this little weird business about 7 years ago. Needed a job. Somebody said, hey, my friend needs a job. Started working. Bill Moran, who is the owner of Realty Exchange, you will never meet a nicer, more willing to help. You just call him and ask him a bunch of questions. He'll sit there on the phone with you and, take his time. So he's a wonderful boss. He just wants people that work for him that want to work hard, want to move the business forward, and he'll teach you what you need to know. So it's kind of a definitely hands-on. I didn't know anything about it, even though I had an investment property at the time.
Well, there you go.
And then sold that in COVID and didn't do a 1031 because just many issues behind that. But so sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
All right. Well, JC will be telling us a little bit about 1031 exchanges, and she's the expert on it, along with Bill and the rest of his group. I saw him last night at the Reston meetup.
You said, yeah.
Yep. So, and he's the one that drug you into this, right?
Yeah.
For us.
Yeah, because he's in Fairfax.
Yeah. So, okay, great. So that's us. Now, since we've got a fairly concise group here, we'll just start around the room. Tell us your name. Tell us about any investment experience, or whether you're just starting, what you want to find out today, and why you're here. Go ahead.
So I'm Mo. I don't have any experience in investing.
Okay.
In property, a little bit in investing in stock, but still learning and losing a lot of money right now.
All right, well, welcome. And you're signed up online with us?
Oh yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
Some networking connections with y'all. So.
Excellent. Well, welcome. Yeah. Well, you never know. You might catch the bug, and all of a sudden you own 10 rental properties, and
That's the goal. Right
yeah,
there.
and then you just go to the mailbox and get your money out.
That's it.
Yeah, mailbox money.
I want that program.
There you go.
Mike Scarlett, we have, my wife and I have 2 properties right now. We're hoping to grow, though it's pretty challenging right now with prices and interest rates and what they want to do, what they're doing now. Really, I'm in sponge mode. We only started a couple years ago, and I'm in sponge mode right now, so I'm just trying to soak up as much knowledge as I can, meet as many people as I can, and like you say, grow our network.
Okay. Yeah. Well, one thing that Rob said last week, Rob Chavez, when he was here, is don't ever fear that you can't find the money to do things, because the money's available. It's finding the deals that's the tough part. So once you do, financing them there's always the ability to do that. One of our sponsors is a hard money lender, Cherie. So she's not here this week. She was here last week. She'll probably be back next week or next month. So
Okay.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
All right, I'm Calvin. Will's friend introduced me to this, and I'm a CPA, and also my wife and my fiance, she's also a CPA. And we are thinking about getting into real estate more, just knowing about the operations, and maybe in the future we're starting our own practice. So here to make some connections and learn from everyone here.
We'll be asking you lots of tax questions tonight.
That's right. You should be good at the numbers, right?
Yeah, for
So
sure.
when we get to the math part, you're going to understand that, right? Yeah, okay. Perfect. Mark?
Yeah, Mark, I met Dave. He helped me sell one of my investment properties, and it was all about my kids. That's why I started buying properties
Yeah.
for my 2 girls. I'm here just to learn. Saving money, and like Dave said just a little while ago, it's all about the deal. there are deals out there. You just got to churn. So, you know, taxes, the whole shooting match, you know, not paying money, you know, is a good thing.
Yep. That's
You
what
know,
we're
keep
trying
it
to
all
do.
yourself. So,
That's
show
right.
me what y'all
As
got.
much as you can.
That's right.
As much as you legally can,
Just-
right?
Exactly.
Within the bounds of
Yeah.
the law,
Yeah.
keep
Good for
as much
you.
as you
That's
can.
good for you. Yeah, there are rules.
Absolutely.
Don't deviate.
Yeah. Well, welcome, Mark.
Absolutely.
Good evening, my name's Glenn. Over my lifetime, I've owned about a dozen homes. I've done 3 of the starter exchanges, and 2 of them with him, her boss. And he is really nice and he is really smart. And he
Yep.
really will give you the time to figure it out. He's a great guy. So I have 3 properties now, trying to figure out what to do with them. I'm studying Pace Morby. I'm going to all these kind of events, trying to build a little bit of a network and figure out what to do. I think what I'm looking for is someone to mentor me through a good deal. I can put in some money, I can work hard, but I'm here to learn. So I'm looking for sort of an ideal mentor.
Okay. Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, and partnerships in real estate investing are totally a great way to go. Yeah. My first property was a buddy of mine. We were renting when I first moved out here. This is back in the mid '80s, and you know, we're up one night late talking to one another, and we're like, why are we renting these places? We should pool our resources, buy a townhouse, get 2 more roommates, and let them help us pay the mortgage. It's called house hacking. Who knew? Right? That's what it's called now. So
Split pad is what it's called.
yeah, exactly. So important legal stuff. You know, we're not gurus, and if you need tax advice, go see a tax accountant. Or if you need legal advice, go see an attorney. If you want to do 1031's the correct way, go see JC, and that's what that says. We're also filming and photographing everyone, so and we're going to use that in our advertisements rolling forward and all that. So just by the mere fact that you're in the room, you're good with that. So, how to complete a 1031 exchange. So, this is where you come in.
Right.
So, JC, so what we'll do is we'll kind of go through the slides, and if you can elaborate on them as we go, that would be great. Is that fair?
Yep.
Okay. So, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, because then I'll go back to Mark and go, hey, Mark, you were wrong about this. You know, if you plan to hold and invest real estate for several years, you know, and you kind of, the reason that we're buying real estate is so that we can perpetually own this, and you know, either sell it when we're ready to give the funds to our kids or whatever, or you know, the one thing that's certain is taxes and death, right? You know, so once you die, you can send it on to your heirs, and and it brings the basis is brought up to 0 at that point, and so they start over at 0. So kind of a cool way to do it.
Yeah, that's what you young kids gotta realize. There's some easy tricks. I wouldn't even call them tricks, but there's some stuff out there that can really keep money in your pocket.
Yeah, exactly. So a 1031 exchange is a way to take current real estate, sell it, and move it on to another piece of real estate. Fair?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. So, you know, once again, we're not legal or tax advice, and you should also always seek the counsel of those people to do that. So, we asked Bill last night what Starker was, so you can tell us what that is.
I have to remember. I just took a test. There's really no designation. You don't have to be a lawyer, CPA to do what we do, but there is a designation for a certified exchange specialist. I just studied for that and passed that last fall. But the Starker, if I'm remembering it correctly, it started out basically where just 2 people were trading deeds.
Yeah.
So, and that's really kind of what it started out to be, was just an exchange. Here, I'm going to have, you know, I've got this farmland over here. You want it, but I want your farmland over there. We're literally going to just change deeds. And that's kind of how it started.
Yeah.
And then the IRS down the road said, well, wait, why does it have to be immediate? you know, if we're gonna change properties, I know I'm gonna buy this piece down here, you know, then they started kind of messing with it, you know, doing the 45-day identification period where you have to designate what property you are gonna purchase. So there's a lot more steps in the middle of it now.
Okay. And now under the code, the 1031 code, it's got to be like-kind exchange, and that can be
Right.
kind of a lot of different things.
People think that it means if I sell land, I have to buy land. It has to be exactly the same. It does not. It just has to be property that's held for investment, and you're exchanging that for property that's to be held for investment. So we have people that are, you know, buying land or selling land and then buying a commercial real estate building, or selling a residential townhouse. And we've noticed sometimes as people get older, they don't want to be landlord anymore. So another option doesn't really fit into maybe exactly what you guys are doing, but they can buy into a DST, which is they become a very small interest owner into like a medical facility, and they don't have to be landlord. Someone else is taking care of the property. They get their checks, you know, monthly, quarterly, however that works.
So can you do a 1031 into a DST? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
cool.
you can do one out of a DST.
Oh, okay. Neat.
What was DST again?
It stands for Delaware Statutory Trust.
Okay.
And it's basically, I'm trying to think of an example. Sometimes apartment buildings
Okay.
are owned by a trust, and so they have tons of little, you know, tons of owners that have a very small slice of ownership. So I got a new contract today. This guy was buying like 2.03, you know, it's a very small percentage, but as the investment, you know, has profits or whatever, then it's shared out into all the owners. They don't, it's hassle-free, but yet there's a trustee that's managing it, and so you have no control over anything that they do.
Okay.
So you're just along for the ride.
Yeah.
Yeah, but as people get older, I mean, not that it's only that, but we do see a majority of the older people tend to go into the DSTs.
Okay. Okay.
I kept thinking daylight savings time.
Yeah.
And what's the advantage of
Of a DST,
or the 1031? I mean, where you're trading
right, so,
taxes?
correct, capital gains taxes,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, because if you sold a piece of property like you did, right, and then all of a sudden you've got, you know, several $100,000 in your hand, if it was free and clear, you know, or whatever you ended up with after you paid off whatever mortgage it was. So now you got to pay taxes on that piece, right? With a 1031, you can actually take that and roll it into other like-kind properties, right? So you could take, for instance, the proceeds from a rental house and buy a piece of land someplace, right? For investment purposes, right? It can't be for you, I don't think.
Right, it doesn't,
Then you defer the taxes.
correct,
And you defer the taxes, and you keep, and the point of the whole 1031, in theory, is that you would keep doing this and building it and building your portfolio bigger and bigger and bigger, and then defer taxes all the way till the end. I mean, you could actually die with it in there, and then it rolls to your kids, and then they zero base it again, and boom, they start at zero. So
we jokingly say you swap till you drop.
swap to exactly, yeah, exactly. There you go. Yeah. So yeah.
So the 1031 is 1-to-1, or like so one land to one land, or like one land?
So they have a definition here, and JC knows a lot more about this than I do. Like kind assets, and the reason that they say like kind is to keep it loose, right? Because this means that you can, all it's really based on is the value. So if you sell something for 500 grand, right? Then you 1031 exchange that 500 grand into a piece of property or properties or land or whatever in any configuration you want, just so long as it's more than 500 grand. Yeah. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you buy down a little bit in value, you're just exposing that difference. But yeah, in
Yeah.
order to not pay tax, your goal is to replace the value that you sold and then utilize all the proceeds from that.
Yep, yep, yep.
Like kind
The train.
So like kind, can you do a sale of a business, income producing business into a real estate, or does it have to be a business to a business?
Real
Okay.
property, so not, a business doesn't work.
Okay.
But the building that houses the business,
Okay,
you could sell that.
and then follow on, not related question, sorry. Does the 1031 exchange into a DST, can you do that also with a REIT?
No, REITs are kind of another animal. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so, and the property, I guess, has to be in the US, right?
Yes. Well,
That's
yes.
a qualified yes, okay. All
Yes,
right.
anywhere in the United
Do-
States.
do
There
tell.
are, you can do foreign, we don't handle those. So I guess that's why I kind of paused for a minute.
Oh, okay,
In the United States, for the 1031, yes, all over the United States,
okay, all right. Does it work for territories too?
yes.
Okay, so anything that's US territory or the 50 states?
Right.
Okay, okay.
How do people know that this vehicle exists?
Well, they keep trying to cut it out every time a presidential election comes around. They do.
I mean, who tells
Right.
the client? I mean, Dave, could you say, hey, Mark, wait a minute, wait, this Vanessa property, let's do a 1031.
Yeah,
I mean, who tells the owner?
A lot of times they're realtors. The
So
owner
it's
of our
inside.
Well, the owner of our company does classes for realtors, title companies, settlement companies. So a lot of times, it's kind of interesting, there's a settlement company out in Missouri, well, they're in Missouri and Kansas. And it's amazing how many referrals we get from that settlement company in Missouri. I don't think I handle any other exchanges for Missouri or Kansas unless it's referred by that settlement company or there's two realtors that kind of work tightly with them. And so I think once they start doing it and understand it, and they learn about it, then they know better what to recognize when their clients are doing it. Sometimes I just don't think, if you don't know, you don't know. And so, realtors are a lot of our referral business and settlement companies.
and CPAs will know about it, they may mention that. Tax attorneys will mention that for sure.
I think that's one of the big things that we can be in this room is you're looking to network and understand this as a vehicle and understand who it's a fit for. I mean, as realtors, as remodelers, there's a whole number of reasons why helping investors understand this vehicle exists. There's a lot of equity out there that could be invested in the market in a smarter way than maybe a less volatile way right now than the stock market, right? So helping them understand how to get their money in, and even money that they didn't think that they could tap into. That's a really good way for us to, once we have that deal and we need to find the money, you need to understand how you're going to get the money. And so these are ways for you to at least start that conversation. Do you know how to invest in a way that's tax, beneficial to you? So it's a great way for us as resources to network and really bring money to the table at some point.
Yeah. So, JC, this won't work for a fix and flip that you're not going to hold for over a year. And
Right, it's not for, if you want to think about it being more for intent, like what's your intent with it? If your intent is to, I'm going to flip it, your intent is not for holding as
Okay.
investment. So that's kind of a more easier way to think about it. If your intent is to flip, fix it up, sell it quickly, you're not holding it for investment. It's your resale. There's not going to be that much, depreciation on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not for flipping. But like I was telling him earlier, I know we have a handful of clients that's exactly what they're doing.
Oh, really?
But we always just start out and say, hey, we're not the police. We can tell you what the rules are, and you or your CPA sign your tax return. So it's kind of whatever you guys, decide. But
What's the minimum time you have to hold it? Is it 12 or 18 months?
that's there's a little bit shaky ground on that. Because there's really no a lot of times people will say 1 year or 2 years is
I've
safe
heard that.
harbor. 2 years for the safe harbor is how long you're gonna hold it before you're gonna turn it into your primary investment. We have a lot of people that do that too, is they sell their rental property, buy another rental, that in 2 years they're like, no, that's not my rental property, that's gonna be my retirement home. So that's another way to kinda, then you could sell your primary residence, get the exclusion there, you know, nice way to kinda fold it into that.
Okay. And I guess equal or greater value, so any number of properties to one property or any number of other properties, just so long as the money that you get off of the properties you sell go into something that is more valuable than the last time.
Correct.
Because they want to keep it going.
You
Yeah.
can sell one and buy three, sell three and buy one,
Okay.
yeah, whatever the combination is.
How many days do you have since you sell it until you put that money into the next investment?
So an exchange is 180 days total. So if you sold your property today, the clock, if you will start tomorrow. So day one will start tomorrow. You have 45 days to identify the property or properties you're going to buy, and then you have the rest of that 180 days to actually purchase it. The hard part right now, of course, is identifying what you want. You know, people will say, do I have to have a contract in 45 days? You don't have to, but you better. Like, it works, you know, if you already kind of know your game plan, you line things up ahead of time. Because, you know, people will go in with the idea, I'm going to do an exchange, but they haven't really been doing their homework. They haven't been planning. They sell and then they go, okay, well now I'm going to go see what I can find in the market. And then when they're not able to identify anything at that 45th day, then they back out of the exchange and we can return their funds to them, but then you know, it's exposed to tax.
Then they're taxed on it, yeah.
Good question. So how many scenarios have you seen where someone's exchanging their property into like a syndication or a larger deal? Have you seen that?
Yeah, syndications are tricky because sometimes they don't work and they've convinced the client. It just depends on how they're set up. I'll just say it that way. It depends.
What is a syndication? I'm sorry.
I don't entirely understand them because they don't really play into a lot of what we do.
So in terms of partnerships, business, you can come together and do an LLC or some type of entity. What I'm learning, experiencing at the multifamily, and for other businesses, we can do a joint venture. 3 or 4 of us will have a property, and you agree to have management and different roles in that particular effort. The syndication is saying, hey, we have 100 units, this is the property. Will and I are going to be the general partners on this venture, and then there's going to be X amount of limited partners that takes you into the world of the Security Exchange Commission, SEC 506, that XXX, there's a couple different ones, and I'm working off a memory. So that 506C is looking for accredited investors, net worth of $1 million or more minus their personal residence. Then there are other offerings. These are private offerings for business, and with those you can have a mix of accredited investors as well as sophisticated investors. It may not meet that $1 million net worth, but they're savvy enough to not put up money that they need. So when the syndication is put together, the SEC attorneys will package the paperwork, and then you begin to do the acquisition raise. So you're wiring money in for that effort. And what I saw about a week and a half ago was there was a venture, this is out I think in Tennessee, and what they said, hey, we're 50,000, X amount, and if you're doing a 1031 exchange, they had a higher number because I didn't know what the semantics were about why, so that's why I asked that question.
Well, and part of the reason that they sometimes don't work, and a lot of times we don't know how it's all set up until the very last minute because they're working on all the stuff, you know, meanwhile the exchange clock is going, and so a lot of times it happens at the last minute. What happens sometimes with those are, if I have an exchanger and let's say you sold a single family home, so you're the taxpayer individually, you have to keep the taxpayer the same throughout the exchange. So you as an individual need to buy the replacement property, and a lot of times what they'll do is they'll put you into an LLC, right? So you've changed the taxpayer from your social security number to the LLC, a multi-member, a brand new taxpayer. And so I have had clients where, you know, they can put them in as individuals, but they're new LLCs, and so you could do a single member LLC to the new property, but cramming you into a multi-member LLC doesn't work. But, you know, we've had things where we'll say that doesn't work, and then a lawyer or somebody will say, no, we think this works because blah, 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 and we just document, you know, this is what we're telling you, we don't think it works, we document our file, but you're the lawyer, we press forward.
Have at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Well, for these younger investors, should they create an LLC for every property they purchase? Or what's better, or do they just use their name?
I don't know, I think that's more of a legal, I don't really know. I have a
Yeah.
client that does tons of stuff down near Powhatan, and he has the same LLC for every,
A general LLC, is that more protection to the buyer?
Well, what I understand is that most of the folks that are doing these things will put their properties in separate LLCs. They'll all be separate.
Just so if
And
something goes south, you don't drag everything
you
down.
might also have an LLC that's just you, right? You know, for whatever business you're doing, but each property is its own LLC.
Right.
Because then it, you know, segregates it from any of the other ones, right?
Right.
Yeah, yeah. The other thing too that I learned last night talking to Bill was that you can do a 1031 exchange for lesser value. You just expose yourself to taxes on whatever that portion is, right? Yeah. Okay. So let's talk a little bit more, JC, about the 45 and 180-day window, because I learned some things last night that were interesting too. So.
okay.
Go ahead.
So at the 45 days you have to identify the property. There's a couple rules that apply. You can identify up to 3 properties of any value. So put on whatever you want, however much they cost, doesn't matter. Sometimes people, gee, that's too small of a, you know, window. There's not enough there. I want a bigger selection of things in case something goes south with one or the other. You can identify more than 3, but then you hit the 200% rule, which is, this is in that book, or I can send you any of this stuff. If you want to grab my business card and send me an email, I'll send you all this in PDF. So if you identify more than 3 properties, it's the 200% rule, which means all of the values of those properties shouldn't be more than 2 times the value what you sold. So if you sell something at 300, if you're going to identify 4 or more properties, all the values of those shouldn't be more than 600.
So you sell a investment property November 1st. You have until December 15th then to identify the replacement properties, and you should also have them under contract too, because once the 45 days is over, you're done then,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really tough. It goes back to the planning. I had an exchanger about a year or so ago. Sold, I forget what he sold. It was a couple million. He was going to buy a Dollar General maybe, or CVS. Everything, you know, he had the contract. Everything looked good to go. But then at the last minute, whoever was renting the space decided that they wanted to buy it. There was something in the contract.
Oh.
So then his time was run out, and so we just had to sit there and hold his couple $1 million until the end of the 180. We couldn't give it back to him.
Oh, I see.
So that's another tricky thing. If you put something on the list and then you go past the 45-day, sometimes people say, well, you know, this one through inspection, I didn't like what I saw. This one's no longer available. and I want my money back. I'm sorry, you know that paper that you signed, we can't give it back to you until the end of the 180
Okay.
days.
And once you give it back to them, then it's
You're
taxed.
still taxed anyway.
Yikes, ouch. So you gotta wait a half a year
Yeah.
to then get taxed.
Yeah,
That sounds good.
yeah, right.
So I guess the point of that is that once it's not identifying the properties, it's like figuring out which properties you're gonna do and getting them under contract and being pretty much locked and loaded by
Yeah,
definitely locked and loaded by the end of the 45 days. Otherwise, you can't flip different properties in there, and
Right.
and then you're done.
right.
Yeah. Okay. Everybody get that one? Because that's a subtlety that you got to make sure of, at least in my opinion.
Right.
Yeah.
So the identification is like I have to put the list down.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly everything. I cannot change it.
You can't change it after the 45.
After the 45 days.
And you have to buy substantially the same. That's like the key
Yeah.
word. So if you say, I'm going to buy, sometimes people bring in a co-buyer, you know, oh, well, I'm buying the right value, but I'm buying a property that's valued more. So I'm going to only buy half of that property, and I'm going to bring my buddy as the co-buyer. So you can do that, but when you do that on the identification, you can't just say, I'm going to buy 123 Main Street. You have to say 50% of 123 Main Street.
Hmm.
So everything like I'm going into contract.
Right.
And so reiterate the 200% rule again. So,
Sure.
Yeah.
If you buy if you identify, more than 3 properties, the values of all those properties shouldn't be more than 2 times what you sold.
Okay. So if you identify 4 or 5 of them, then it has to be 200%, up to 200% of what of the money that you have.
If it's
too.
more than that, then you have to buy 95% of the list, which it's
Okay.
really like buying a whole list.
Yeah. Okay.
That rarely comes into play, but
All right. And the 180 days is the time window in which you have to close then.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. Perfect.
95% of the amount or the number of credits? Like 95 of 10 units or 95 of 10 million of their value combined?
so you have to buy 95% of the list. So if you had like, I'm trying to think of a good example for that.
Like if I have a list of 20, I do like, I had to buy 19 of them.
You know what, that's a really good question, because you could buy 100% of most of them, but not one. Can I get back to you on that one?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
that rarely comes into play, so,
Interesting.
yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions about 1031's?
So for the reverse exchange, where you sell and want to do it, are there those same time windows?
Yes. Mhm.
So one of the main points is that you should have a qualified intermediary to help you do this, right?
Yeah. And we have to be hired before you close.
Before the
Close on
closing.
the property you're selling. Sometimes I'll have somebody that'll call and they'll say, hey, I just closed on Friday, but I don't have the money yet. It's like, well, that's too late.
So it has to be before the actual closing?
Yeah.
Okay. Of the property you're selling to
Correct.
then begin the 1031? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so basically the IRS doesn't trust you to manage this process. That's why you have an intermediary that's helping you. Okay. And of course, we have intermediaries in the room right now, so we can give you their name. And what's the point? So that you can defer your taxes almost forever, and even defer them into your kids once you've left the earth. Because I guess everybody dies at least once. Yeah. Trade up using free money, Curthelia. And this is where you get to send it on to your kids. But wait, it gets better. Yeah. So your kids pay 0 taxes.
Right.
All right. So, next subject, depreciation and cost segregation. All right, let's talk about that for a little bit. So once again, it's not tax advice because we're not tax attorneys or accountants or anything
Actually,
like
I
that.
have a question with regards to the 1031.
Yep, go ahead.
Last question. Because the 1031 is only for business properties.
Investment
Right?
properties.
Yeah, investment properties. Let's say for primary residence, I know people use section 121 exclusion for the capital gains. But is it possible to, let's say, I have a primary residence now, and then later on, I transition it, I rent it out, and then I do a 1031 exchange?
Yeah,
Would
you
it
can
work?
do that.
Okay, gotcha.
Does he have to have the safe harbor? Does it have to be a rental for a certain period of time?
I think you have
I
to
don't-
intent to sell it or something. There's a rule about it, but I don't think there's a time in it.
Okay.
Let me look at the time.
Yeah.
I don't think there is. But let me think on that one.
But if you do it the other end, you do the exchange and then you convert it to primary residence.
Right.
And then you have the 24 month.
Yeah, I figure with the house hacking, that's fairly popular. Is you buy it, you live in it, you rent it out, and then eventually you move out of it, and then over time you might get tired of the original houses you bought and maybe want to upgrade to bigger multifamilies. It would be a popular option. But how long do you have to move out of it? And does it technically count as your primary residence if you're one of the residents?
Yeah, which for like new, younger folks, buying their first house, if, I've got a client that we just got them into their second house. They had a condo before, and, they called us up and it's like, hey, we're thinking about selling our condo because we want to get a house. And I said, well, let me find out what the rents are there, because it may be best if you're cash positive on the rents versus your mortgage, that you just keep it, rent it out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little anti-realtor, right? Because I'd love to sell the thing, but that's not. I'm here to help my clients make money and do the smart thing. So they were like, yeah, sure. So now they're in their new house, closed on that. They're renting their condo, and they're cash positive by a few $100.
That's what we did. We moved out of our primary into, our next home and tried to rent or sell back then, rented it, and then rented it for almost 20 years.
Yeah,
So
definitely. All right, so anybody with rental properties depreciating any of it? I'm sure the CPAs know about that. So properties held for investment, not your personal residence. So if you've got a rental property, you can, do, and it's not short. It's not fix and flips either. It's the rental properties. You can then depreciate part of the property. So, and the reason for that is because the government figures that the building on the property is losing value as it goes, right? The land does not, so you separate the two out. And the IRS will allow you to depreciate the building on a piece of property for 27 and a half years. Why is it 27 and a half years? Who knows? That's just what they pick, right? So, and this is called straight line depreciation. And so what it really means is that you can depreciate 3.636% of the building's value every year for that 27 and a half years as you're going. Yep. So for instance, if you buy a property for 175 grand and the land, just to make the math simple, is worth 75 grand, then you can depreciate the $100,000 at a rate of $136 every year for 27 and a half years.
From the 100.
From the 100, because it's just the building, right?
No, I mean like next year I don't take like 100 minus 3.63 and then like.
No, it's straight line depreciation, so it's 36 every year. Yep. And of course, it offsets the income from the property, right? So, and that helps you to along with the expenses and stuff. And we'll have a little math equation here going on. So, Government lets us offset the income of the property with the loss from depreciation, yep. So, but we can do even better because there's another aspect of the same thing, depreciation, that's cost segregation, right? So what this means is that even though that building is depreciating over 27 and a half years, the stuff in it depreciates faster, right? Because an HVAC's not gonna last, system's not gonna last for 27 and a half years. The appliances aren't gonna last for 27 and a half years. The paint on the walls is not gonna last for 27 and a half years. The carpet, the flooring, you know, the only things that'll stay is really the structure. The rest of it depreciates, right? So the government allows you then to depreciate those aspects of things faster, right? So you get higher losses, right? Let's see, let's get to the equations here. Oh, the other thing too about this is if you're going to do the cost segregation, you need a cost segregation study, right? And it's not something that you can just do yourself or say, oh, I've got the study, right? You have to actually have a qualified person help you do that, right?
Yeah.
So whoever might be doing that.
Yeah, I forget when they do that study, is that part of that commercial property study that they typically do? They look at all the conditions of it, put that into a I'm blanking on the name of it.
They do a list. It's basically a study that's a list of all the stuff in.
Yeah.
So, you know, simple is a rental house, right? You know, so you've got your HVAC, you've got your appliances, you may have a dishwasher and a, you know, whatever's in there is on the list. And so you pay, I don't know, a couple grand, I think, to do a study like this or something like that. And everything is in there so that when you change these items out, then those start again, but you're gonna have to redo your study, right? Yeah, so it's a little bit complicated, but it works, right? And the way the math works on it then is, yeah, so an example is purchase price of $350, basis after the land is removed is $250, annual rental on this property is 40 grand, your operating expenses for that property are 10 grand, so and your tax rate's 22%. So straight line depreciation is pretty easy math. 250 times the percentage is your depreciation of 9 grand a year. So you take your income minus your expenses minus the depreciation, and your taxable income then is 20 grand on this 40 that you made on the house, right? At 22%, that's $4,600 in taxes. Segregated, let's say you get 10% depreciation, which is 25 grand. So the same math with 25 grand depreciation means that your taxable income is 5 grand, and at a 22% tax rate, that's $1,100, not $4,600, right? So you just saved yourself over 3 grand by doing the cost segregation piece.
So just what's up, Brian? The accelerated is 10%. The regular straight line is 3.3.
Right.
3.63. And
Well,
that's standard.
Yeah. Well, it can be up to 10, I think.
Up to 10.
Yeah.
What determines the percentage? Is that the
Let's
go.
study?
Yeah, it's the study that they do for you that does that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So when you put the study together, you know, each piece of it, you know, it depends. It can be up to 10%, but you know, you can, you know,
Figures how much it's.
if something's newer than, you know, if your appliances are newer than your HVAC, then they're depreciating at different things. That's why you do the study to figure out what it is.
Okay.
And that's why it's complicated. That's why you have to have somebody that's qualified do it for you, because the IRS doesn't trust, you know, just anybody out there to do, oh yeah, I got the study. Yeah, sure you do. Yeah.
And you can't benefit from both in the same year? Do you have to pick which one you want to?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know.
I know that the cost seg, you can pick what year you want to utilize it. Other years you might not even use it at all, so that's why I asked.
Yeah. Now, the standard depreciation thing would be, you could do that whenever you want. If you're paying for the cost segregation one, you probably want to keep using that one
Yes.
because you'll get a higher percentage, right? Yeah.
You want to be consistent with like how you depreciate, because that's what like if the IRS flag if you changed up your depreciation method.
Mm-hmm.
And then the painful part about depreciation is when you sell recoupment.
That's why we do the structure exchange.
I didn't know.
Protect all that stuff, yeah.
The recoupment,
Yep.
you sell,
Yep.
and you've depreciated. I have property I held on for 20 years, and
Same.
I was like, oh, that number is painful.
And that's why you do a 1031 exchange.
I had known. I'm learning now.
Yeah, exactly.
Paying taxes, when you think about it, is not a terrible thing. That means you've made money
True.
now, but, to pay as little as you can, sure.
I
But
don't know if
don't,
you can avoid it.
Yeah. Yeah, and the IRS gives us ability to do that, so you want to take advantage of it.
When you get new things that are in the study, do you have to then get like another study?
Yes.
Really? So like, okay, so they say that like your HVAC is supposed to last 5 years. So then every 5 years you're gonna have to get a brand new study done.
Yeah.
So that's extra. I mean, because like if the study, let's just say it's $5,000, that means that you save the $3,000 that first year, but you really don't break even until year 2.5. And then let's just say 5 years you got to get into an HVAC, so that's another $6,000 or $5,000 for the study. So I was just thinking about that. Do you often see lots of people go that route, or do they just take the straight line?
I don't know what the breakdown is. I know that the folks that are really into the investing thing are going to do the cost segregation thing because they get a bigger tax break on it, right?
For sure.
And they get to depreciate it down. Where it really comes into play too is the example of, remember, this goes for any investment property, right? So let's say you own a medical building, and the fixtures in that medical building are owned by you, not the doctors in there, right? So you can have accelerated or cost segregated depreciation, huge savings on that. Because, MRI machines are like, how many hundreds of thousands of dollars a piece, right? So it really makes sense when you get into those types of properties to do it this way because, they're basically paying no taxes.
Yeah.
All the rent, they're actually probably in the hole from all the rents based on all the depreciation that they're doing on buildings like that, right? So, when you're in a single house, it's a little bit different. You may just go, straight line, forget it, I don't want to, I want to do the cost segregation thing.
Or maybe for commercial buildings, if you're investing
Yeah.
in
That's it. I think
that's where it could be.
Yeah.
especially you get those large commercial buildings, multiple investors, and you need that transparency in that study. I think, like you said, that study's not cheap. From what I understand, Shelley, my wife, commercial property manager for 20 years, and she always talked about those studies, and I think they typically do them once every 5 years. And in that, I believe they give you, they give an investor, not only do they look at all the stuff, but they give you a roadmap for the building. I mean, you're paying for extremely valuable information that will help you also resell that building, show somebody else the status. It's like a home inspection on a commercial property, from my understanding, but on another level, right? So it's not something for a single property you'd probably do, and probably doesn't make sense from a tax perspective. But I don't know how many single families. Does this depreciation thing, obviously, does it work as well for short and midterm rentals, or for that income, or is that taxed differently because it's short term?
No, I think it's all the same.
Okay.
I think you still, because you're depreciating the asset,
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how you're getting rents, whether it's short-term rental, midterm rental, or long-term rental. It's all income coming in.
Right.
So if you make more income from Short-term rentals, it's still the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just, if you're making more money, you're offsetting less with straight line.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the example you used, you showed a positive cash flow, but if the cash flow is lower and you wound up after depreciation or whatever not having a positive cash flow, what point can you write those off in your taxes, and what is that trigger? And is it different if you're a real estate professional? Because I've read about that, and it seems like you're able to take those passive losses.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That may be a CPA question.
What does the CPA think?
Kelvin, what can we do there?
I kind of get lost here.
So essentially the question was, just to restate the question, and it's a great question. If you actually have losses,
Yeah.
right, and after you depreciate, you're at a loss, can you take that
Well, you can roll
loss?
forward
Can
till
you-
the next year tax return.
Can you take, what is it, can you
If
take
you
it?
keep buying houses, So I guess rather than roll it over, I understand there's a designation called real estate professional. I think you have to contribute more than, what is it? Has to be less than, you can't be employed otherwise more than 25% of your time. You need to designate at least 15 hours a week to your real estate activities. There's a couple other qualifications that if you do that, you're able to take those active losses against your other income.
Right, there's like a certain percentage you have to prove to the IRS that you are actively engaged in.
Right. But there's a way to do
real
it,
estate.
right?
Huh?
But there's a way to do it, right? That's what I need to learn.
As long as you got it documented, it's all.
Yeah, we can game plan that. We can all
Yeah, I
game
think
plan
there's
that.
there's a trick to it for.
Well, certainly when you start adding in the depreciation and then the expenses and the other things that come, I mean, you're not really, at the end of the day making money. And by the time you end up getting your tax situation, it's kind of hard to go back and figure, oh crap, I really didn't do that right. It's way too late. I mean, I'm dealing with that. It's hard to go back and do it after the fact if you don't have your ducks in a row.
And you've got
Which,
your income, you want to
100%.
offset that tax.
yeah, it's hard to unwind once you get down that path. So like setting it up cleanly and obviously kind of knowing how to go about it is super critical.
Anything else on depreciation? We're kind of getting a little close, but we'll talk a little bit about self-directed IRAs. I know that a lot of investors are using their self-directed IRAs to buy real estate. Most of the time IRAs are stocks or whatever. But you can actually, with a self-directed IRA, do real estate that way as well. The interesting thing about that, or the tricky thing about that, is if you're funding a self-directed IRA and you're going to buy a piece of rental property, investment property through that, everything has to run through the IRA. All aspects. You can't go over there and paint the house yourself, right? You have to hire it out. You gotta have an expense to roll through the IRA. To do that, right? So that's the thing to keep in mind, that everything's got to flow through there, and any profits you get back or anything you get back from it flows right back into there as well, because it can't be any benefit for you currently. It has to be retirement benefit, which is the reason for the self-directed IRA. Yeah.
But even without the IRA, if I painted the house myself as a rental property, I can't use my time. I can't.
You just named, you actually would have to have me give you an invoice and all that. It'd have to be legit, or else they probably go, no, can't do it. So.
Does it have any limits, like the normal IRA for contribution? So the money goes in to buy property through contributions, or like?
Yeah, so you fund it yourself, so I don't think there's any limits. I think you can just pile money in there if you want. There are a lot of investors that use self-directed IRAs to do a lot of their stuff. They just have to, through the custodian, they have to make sure that they're doing it all legitimately. And,
Yep.
you know, all this is, you know, everything we talked about tonight's got to be defensible with the IRS, right? You know, because otherwise they will come and get you.
What's the benefit going through the IRA than going through an LLC, my LLC for each investment property?
So it's pre-tax dollars versus after-tax dollars, right?
Yes,
So-
but I would pay taxes on the gains.
Someday.
Someday,
Someday, yeah.
someday.
Yeah, okay.
Or if you died, okay, we're gonna go back to the death scenario. If you died, then your kids are zero basis from there, right? So they can start and go from zero.
This is I think one of the best vehicles that are out there for folks looking for private money. If you're looking to get deals and you're looking to underwrite and you're looking and you say, hey, listen, I've have so many people that talk to me and they're like, I really want to get into real estate. I don't really know how, and I don't really have any money. But a lot of people have a 401k. A lot of people have a decent sized 401k, especially folks that have been working for 20 years. And a lot of times they're all in stocks or they're in ETFs or in their mutual funds, and they don't know how much they're paying in fees to that mutual fund company that's managing their stuff. So maybe they're getting an 8 to 10% return in the good years. Right now things are looking a little more volatile. Maybe I want to take, you know, if I've got $1 million in my 401k, I know my brother's in a situation, he's like, I need to defer interest. I need to stop paying so much, and I've got a lot of liquid. What do I do, and how do I diversify a little bit? Well, you can take out a self-directed, lend that money out on a project that you're not benefiting, and you can go give it to somebody that's doing renovations in multifamily. And so now you can get into it and find somebody that's doing that, and now all of a sudden you're in the game somewhat passively, almost as it's as a limited partner. So that's a way for somebody that does have savings, that doesn't really know, but has some 401k, they can get in the game. And in terms of, like you said, limits, they can come in with a small amount. And it can be as small as like $40,000 or $50,000, and that can be the seed money for a rehab property or a rental property. So those, there's definitely ways for you to partner with folks and say, hey, listen, even if you don't have liquid in your account right now, if you have a $100,000 401k, take $40,000, roll it over, lend it to me, okay, and I'll pay you 10%. The 10% can go straight back into your 401k when we're done flipping it. And then you've made 10%, and then you can go do it again and again and again, right?
You don't pay taxes then.
And you don't pay taxes right now.
Taxes, yeah.
All right, right. And so you can joint venture, you can use that, they can use that stake to get a percentage of equity or just get a return, a rate of return. So there's a number of different ways that can really work.
Can I, to continue on what you're saying, if I put $100,000 into a self-directed IRA, I identify a property that's $500,000. Basically, I can have check writing privileges out of the self-directed IRA to put to earnest money down, et cetera, close.
You can't put the money on your own property. So you have to lend it to somebody else that's benefit, because to the point, and that's where we would need to talk to the self-directed as exactly what you can and can't. I know that to your point, you can't benefit from it right now. So I really need to lend it to somebody else or another entity, LLC, that I'm not a named member on.
And that's why they have you do it with a custodian, because then they'll keep you from going off the rails on that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I can do you, and you can do me.
We do. In fact, we'll send out, I think there's a few different, we've got a few different solo self-directed options that I've dealt with. I know Dave's got a few. So we'll send those out to the group and say, here's a few that we've used or heard of that people can look into.
Yeah.
I know I've used Horizon Trust, but there's a few different options out there, and I think kind of maybe it depends on where you're at, and
Yeah, so you don't, as an investor, you don't really necessarily even need to be in the buying properties piece of it. You can just be the bank.
Yep.
I mean, which is really a great way to go, right? You can be private lender. You can fund hard money folks, right, for a percentage back. It's just got to all flow back to the self-directed IRA.
Excuse me, folks, I gotta shove off.
Mark,
Dave,
thank you. Appreciate you coming.
Thank
Very
you.
good- Very good stuff,
All right.
folks.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
We'll talk to you soon. Say hi to Cindy for me.
Yeah, man.
And I think that's it. Yeah. find a property to purchase, direct your custodian. This is what we just talked about, manage investments in your account. Yep.
Anybody know if you could do it with a Roth IRA? I have a large Roth, and I always wondered if I could do that. Never asked anybody.
Might be able to roll your Roth over to it.
I did a book. It was talking about a solo 401k, which is very similar with comparison to the Roth IRA. I mean, if you want me to, I can look into that.
Okay.
It's like,
Yeah, we'll put some info out on
It's
that.
not doing me much. So.
Yeah.
I saw the solo offering on one stuff with like IRA facility site, but I was trying to read and just compare apple to apple, like what's the real difference?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
We'll put some info out on that. I appreciate the questions. I think that's really good.
Yeah, and so we're pretty closed up on this discussion here. So all these things can be done in combination with one another too. I mean, you know, the reason that we talk about these is so that you can, you know, be dangerous enough now to know something about it and ask the right questions and get with the right people that know how to direct you exactly on how to do these things, proper professionals and all that. But that's the reason for this group. Yeah.
So just quickly, I wanted to thank JC for coming out. We have a gift card for JC. Thank her for coming out. That's a $50 gift card to Honey Baked Ham. So thank you. Thank you for the holidays. Thank you for coming out and sharing your knowledge with us. And we'll put info out. We'll send a follow-up out to everybody with her contact info. We'll send out details on what's in the packet as well. And we'll follow up on the questions and stuff. I know if anybody's interested in chatting more with Dave and myself, we're gonna reach out and ask, you know, if you want to book some time just to chat, either for coffee or online or whatever's convenient, and then just kind of chat more about where you're at in your journey and what you're looking to do and how we can help. So.
Yeah, make sure you registered. If you hit this this QR code there, it'll take you to the page. You can make sure you sign up for us, and you'll be in our database. You know, there's some other resources that you can go to. You can go to Grid Facebook group. You can do our YouTube Grid Investor. You can do, well, local events, but you'll see ours there on that one. Grid free Grid Pass. This allows you to go in and get information off of our grid sites and go take some massive action.